I can't believe I'm saying this, but Kamala Harris has outdone herself giving the worst, most evasive interview of this entire campaign, and guess what? Even her political aides behind the camera had enough of her when they forced Fox News' Brett Breyer to stop the interview. This is not a good look for the Kamala campaign, but you need to see the kind of filibustering that led up to it, because there's so much that I need to tell you about.
Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years, so what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we have been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
that is about turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people
you're the
have
lever of
become.
power.
But listen.
You can't help but roll your eyes every time a question of self-accountability is deflected by saying Donald Trump's name. What you saw is a snapshot of the entire interview, and you have to give some props to Brett Breyer for being willing to step over some lines of politeness to interrupt and try to get her back on track. And you know what? This was one of those interviews that many in her campaign and the media establishment were looking forward to, apparently looking for a memorable takedown of Fox News and hitting hard in hostile media territory. And afterward, well, they've been pretty quiet because even the Kamala campaign and her voter base realizes this was one of the worst displays of evasiveness she's ever done. By the way, subscribe to the channel because we are not afraid to say it like it is. And here's the cold truth. There's literally no verbal escape hatch she can use to get out of the fact that she's nearly half of the last decade she's talking about was her own administration that she was a part of. And before that decade, it was 8 years of a Democrat administration with Barack Obama that leaves her no room to filibuster the important question of political accountability. And she knows that well herself, which is why she begrudgingly takes on these media interviews only because she knows she has to. But there was a key moment from this interview that's making rounds, which is when Kamala's aides literally stepped in to do damage control by signaling Brett to stop the interview ASAP. Take a look at this.
Madam Vice President, they're rapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have much more to say,
There are a lot
actually.
of things that people want to learn about you and your policies,
Yes.
and that's why we invited you
I invite everyone
here.
to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why we invited you here,
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap here.
Well, I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know the one thing I loved about this? It's that Brett Breyer said on air twice that he was being signaled to stop the interview, and that's what defeated the Kamala's campaign's goal with that in the first place. They were looking for a smooth exit looking good at the end, but that was foiled thanks to Brett's instinct at putting it as a part of the record that the interview was being interfered with and cut short. Arguably, that's the most viral and clippable moment from this entire conversation, especially when it's going to be so fresh in people's memory when they go out to vote on November 5th. That was also evident from when she just plugged her website instead of answering questions on specific policy, Brett Baier spoke to Sean Hannity after the interview and revealed the inside details of what happened behind the scenes.
It was a little tense. We were given the time of 5 p.m. Eastern time. Obviously, my show is at 6 p.m. They wanted to tape at 5 p.m. We said we were going to tape as live. In other words, roll the tape and then just turn that around unedited, uninterrupted, and but we had to do it before 5:15. Otherwise, we couldn't turn the whole machine around before the top of the 6 p.m. show. So we were waiting at 4:55, and then 5, and then 5:05, and then 5:10. At 5:17, the vice president walked out. So it did feel a little bit like they're icing the kicker or trying to. And originally they were talking about 25 minutes and they gave us 20 minutes. And I was fine with any time. I was really happy to get the interview. Her people, like probably 4 people, were wrapping me, with big, moving arms. That's why I looked out to the side and said, I've got to wrap up. You want to keep talking, you want to keep asking questions, but they were very animated. And listen, I hope she comes back. I actually think this is a different take. I think she had a mission that she wanted to do, and maybe she wanted to have a viral moment. She wanted to have a pushback. She came to Fox News and she wanted to have a go after Donald Trump viral moment that plays on a lot of other channels and on social media.
That is bad press all around for Kamala Harris, but you know what I think? It wouldn't even have to be this way if Kamala realized one thing. It's that people are willing to forgive political mistakes if you're at least honest and upfront with it. For example, a large segment of this interview with Brett Baier focused on the border and illegal immigration crisis, and every question would be met with a deflection instead of accountability. After all, since she switched positions on so many of her important policies, why not just admit it was part of an older policy that didn't work and that you'll change it? With a lot of politicians today, including Kamala Harris, don't realize, it's that there's literally no way that you can take people for a ride like this. The audience is in tune with every change in body language, every mental gymnastics, and every false tonality, to the point that someone like Kamala Harris can never fake being authentic. The audience and the voter base is more forgiving only if you respect their intelligence enough to be honest with them. But in this interview, there was a through line of almost talking down to both Brett as well as his audience, and also just 20 minutes? It's hard to go through even one issue in any depth at that length of time. So as for right now, people just aren't impressed by any candidate that's more interested in playing a blame game over just being upfront and accountable for the years they've already spent in office.
Someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish.
See what I mean? This was a hollow husk of an interview from Kamala's side that only did her more harm than good. And as one of her last few interviews before the election, it's at a time when the independent middle is going to make final decision calls about which way they're going to lean on election day. But let me know in the comments how you believe it fits in with Kamala Harris's media strategy, and share this video with people that need to see it. Anything beyond that, we'll have to wait and see on election day.